Welcome, folks, to the first episode of the BatChums podcast, and I'm very excited to be talking Batman 66. Joining me tonight is my co-host, the man, the myth, the new legend, Mike Gordon.
Howdy! It is bat-tastic to be here. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of puns like that. So for those people who don't know me or don't know us, I'm not afraid. I always intend the pun. So, so we're going to go for that, but hopefully it won't be too brutal for people. But thank you for the invitation to do this. Batman 66 is a show that I grew up with, and I'm really anxious to talk about it. I've looked for an excuse to do an episode by episode commentary or analysis for a long time now. So this is going to be a blast. I appreciate it.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to rewatch this program, first of all, I haven't seen it all the way through yet. So I've only
Wait, so
seen it.
you've never seen all 120 some episodes?
No, I have not.
Woo! This is going to be
So,
fun.
yes. So, and most of my watching of it was when I was a kid, when it was on TV on reruns.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be there. There's going to be some episodes I have never seen before.
That's
And then there's
awesome.
going to be some I remember. So I'm kind of excited about it because one of the episodes I remember is, and I can't remember the whole thing, and I've wanted to rewatch it, but there's something about one of those mine cars, and I can't even remember what villain it was. One of these villains was in this mine car, and they were trying to get into the Bat Cave and find out Batman's secret identity or something like that. That's the only thing I remember about that episode. But and then there's other episodes where I remember like Batman and Robin being trapped, and they're going to be turned into pianos or something.
That wouldn't surprise me. I must admit I do not have them all memorized, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was something that was on the agenda. Because a lot of the traps that they were set in were pretty outlandish. But that's the beauty of the series, I think. Yeah, for those people who are not familiar with you or myself, of course, Drew is been the longtime host, the main man behind the Earth Station DCU podcast. How many episodes have you guys done? Like, it's been a lot, right?
I think we're on um 362, I believe, or
Amazing.
361.
And it's
I
been more than 5 or 6 years, right?
Yeah, it's been 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah,
That's
well,
incredible.
not quite 8 years. I think we got a couple months before it's 8 years. But
And you
you
guys have
helped
been
me launch that first episode. If you
well.
remember right, I think we we recorded it like 3 times, I think, because of issues.
It was a lot tougher to record stuff back then. I'll tell you that. There were a lot fewer options, so there was a lot.
Yes.
It was very easy to make mistakes, get your equipment, together, and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, anybody can just, pick up their phone and record a podcast, and it'll sound better than those did in the wee years, in the early years. But you guys have been analyzing comics and stories and TV and movies that are related to the DC universe for all those years, and you guys do an incredible job. I've been fortunate enough to be invited and join you guys on occasion, and what you guys do week in and week out with all that content is amazing. I kind of wonder, so your co-host on that show, Cletus, who's a great resource. I guess he wasn't up for the challenge of the Batman 60s show. Is that
didn't
fair?
I didn't even ask him because he's so busy as it is now with
True.
all this he's coaching basketball, and he's got all this stuff going on after school. So I didn't even ask him. It's tough enough for us just to meet to do our regular show,
I
and
understand how that
it's
goes.
tough. I think some weeks we have like we'll review like 9 comics and a television show. So right
Hmm.
now we're reviewing Sweet Tooth. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, and I understand how that is. I mean, I'm on a break right now from the weekly Earth Station One podcast, so this allows me to kind of branch out and do a few other things. And like I said, I've always wanted the opportunity to delve into this series a lot more because it was something that I saw it when I was a kid in syndication. I'm not old enough to have seen it live when it aired in prime time. I'm just young enough that I missed it by that much. But I did watch it in syndication. Loved it. Loved the character of Batman from from the cartoons that I watched at the time, from Filmation, from Super Friends, from the comics I was reading. Batman became quickly my favorite comic character. Him and Spider-Man were the two ones that I followed, whatever medium they were in. Whether it was books on record, we didn't have a lot more, and we didn't have a lot of options back then. But whatever medium it was, I followed them, and but this series has a special place in my heart. I used to watch it. Used to be on channel 38, I think, in Boston. Like I said, it was in syndication, but they didn't. I don't remember them showing them in any particular order, or maybe it's just that I couldn't watch it in any particular order. So there'd be times where this show, the first couple seasons anyway, is when it originally aired, it aired twice a week, which means that they had two parters every week, and it would always end on a cliffhanger, that first part. And so when it was in syndication, sometimes I didn't catch the second part until much later. In fact, I do remember one of the episodes that had a cliffhanger of Robin being devoured by a giant clam or oyster kind of thing. I remembered specifically was really like haunting me. Like it was a really weird visual. And I didn't find out how that resolved for decades later. Like it wasn't until like I was an adult. The show was in syndication for quite some time, but because of the legalities of it being a 20th Century Fox produced show of a property that would later become owned by Warner Brothers, it was always in legal entanglement. So it was always hard to find. It wasn't released. I don't think it was released officially for home use on Blu-ray and DVD and whatnot until about 10 years ago, in which they came out with a nice Blu-ray set, which I have and which I've been using for this show. I do remember there was some bootleg stuff available that I did or did not acquire in order to watch. So I've seen all the episodes at least a couple times since then. But back then, yeah, I couldn't get enough of this show. I took it kind of seriously as a kid, but I still knew that it wasn't like dead serious, but I really appreciated it for what it was. Whereas I know that a lot of Bat fans, especially today, can't take this seriously at all. And it's not meant to be taken. It is a camp show, but it is sort of, I think, a good show. It's well produced.
Now, my first, hang on a second.
He's got the bat glass. He's got the bat water.
I got bat water. I also got, but my first experience with Batman was when I was 5 years old. And this is the first encounter I remember of Batman. I remember we were in between moving houses. So we were in a trailer. I remember sitting in front of the TV. I was around 5 years old, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This is how vivid this memory is. And I'm watching the show, and I loved it. And the thing about the show, this is what got me into cliffhangers. I love cliffhangers, and it was because of this show. So I that's why I've always enjoyed things with cliffhangers.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've enjoyed this show. I think it started maybe even earlier, when I can remember reading the monster at the end of this book. I mean, that's a page turner, like I mean literally it is. Like every page is like what's going to happen. And there was this show. Of course, my mom was watching soap operas, and I grew up on soap operas as well. I love a good cliffhanger. And yeah, it's one of those things that in this day and age of binge watching, not a lot of people really appreciate cliffhangers because they all just watch all the shows all at once. And I think there's some fun elements to this. Certainly, while we made the decision when we're doing these episodes to do them record an episode at a time, reviewing one episode at a time. So, for example, today we're just going to review the first episode, including the cliffhanger and leaving it at the cliffhanger. So, as I'm watching these, it was really difficult, Drew, for me to stop it after episode one because I was like, oh, I really want to find out what happens. But it's the beauty of a cliffhanger that you can't find out right away.
See, I'm used to doing that because that's what we do on our show. We watch an episode. Now, we've watched multiple shows or on our other show, but we've only done one episode of the show normally. I think there's a few times we've done back to back to catch up or something, but yeah, for the most part, I'm used to the cliffhanger thing, and we try not to watch the next episode before we record, so everybody gets our reaction to it
Yes. Yeah.
without knowing what's going to happen next. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, apart from that, I don't know, as we go on, I mean, we've got a lot of episodes to cover. So, and if certainly people, viewers and listeners have questions, we'll be more than happy to address them as we go on, because this is not going to be a binge short-term thing. There are, I think, 120 episodes of the series itself, not to mention movies and other books and whatnot and everything like that. So we've got enough material here just regarding Batman 66 series to cover for quite some time.
and people will be able to give us some feedback because I've got several ways they can do that. We got BatChums podcast at gmail.com. And we also have a phone line, 317-455-8411. They can leave us a message. They can text us. So
Goodness
several
gracious! All
opportunities.
right.
Yeah. So we're raring to go. So
So
I'll
so when
repeat
they when
that
they
at
leave
the
a
end of the
voice
episode.
message or a text, does the red phone go off? Like, does it?
Yeah, it
Do
sure does.
you have a red phone in your office that blinks on and off?
So we'll have Alfred there to answer it for us.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
All right. Are you ready to dive into this episode?
Let's do it, man. This is great stuff. The first episode.
So we got Batman season 1, episode 1, High Diddle Riddle. Gotham City's World Fair, Republic of Moldova. The Prime Minister's Friendship Luncheon. The Prime Minister attempts to cut a cake when it explodes, shooting out a note on a parachute. Commissioner Gordon catches it. The note contains a riddle. Why is an orange like a bell? Knowing that Riddler is behind this, Commissioner Gordon calls for Batman on the red phone. Batman and Robin race to police headquarters in the Batmobile and solve the riddle. Why is an orange like a bell? Because both must be peeled. Batman figures out Riddler's target is the Peel Art Gallery. When Batman and Robin arrive at the Peel Art Gallery, Batman receives a call on the Batmobile's red phone. It is a pre-recorded message from Riddler with another riddle. There are 3 men in a boat with 4 cigarettes, but no matches. How do they manage to smoke? Not knowing the answer to the riddle, Batman and Robin use their batarang and rope to climb the side of the building. When they reach the window, Riddler has a man at gunpoint. Batman uses a special tool to cut through the metal bars over the window. When Robin is about to throw the metal bars to the ground, Batman reminds him about pedestrian safety and pulls a bat hook from his belt. Batman and Robin crash through the window, catching Riddler red-handed. While Batman is putting on the cuffs, photographers snap a photo. The curator tells Batman there has been a mistake. The Riddler wasn't robbing him. He was giving Riddler back his cross, while the Riddler was handing him a lighter. The Riddler had loaned it to the museum. The gun in his hand was really a cigarette lighter. Holy ashtray! Robin figures out that the Riddler did tip them off. They threw one cigarette overboard and made the boat a cigarette lighter. Batman is served with a $1 million lawsuit for assault, slander, and false arrest. This may cause Batman to have to reveal his identity in court. Back at Wayne Manor, Bruce Wayne searches through his father's old law books. Dick remembers that the Riddler hinted at two other clues. Bruce and Dick head to the Batcave to search the document over for hidden clues. Batman finds two more riddles that gives them the address 222 Glover Street. Batman and Robin arrive at a club. Robin is too young to enter, so Batman must enter alone. Robin parks the Batmobile. Batman makes his way to the bar and orders an orange juice. A red-headed woman named Molly tells Batman a riddle. Why is a quarrel like a bargain? The answer, it takes two to make it. Batman and Molly dance together on the dance floor. Batman almost passes out because his drink has been spiked. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Riddler shoots a knockout dart at Robin. When the Riddler tries to start the Batmobile, it shoots off flares. The Riddler takes Robin prisoner and tries to set the Batmobile on fire. The Batmobile has an anti-fire system and the fire is put out. Batman attempts to go after Robin, but he's in no shape to drive. Batman hands his keys over to the police. In the sky, the bat signal is lit. The Riddler straps Robin to a gurney and grabs a scalpel. Will Robin escape? Can Batman find him in time? Is this the ghastly end of the dynamic duos? Answers tomorrow night. Same time, same channel. One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Excellent summation. That is yeah, so much to unpack there. So fun.
So, just so you know, when I do those recaps, sometimes I stumble over my words. The funny thing is, on video, we're not going to have much to fix it. So they're going to see it unedited. In the podcast, I fix those things a lot. So
That's fair. That's fair. It's fine. I think you did fine. And it's in this little half-hour episode, it's not even a half hour because of commercials and everything. There's so much going on. They pack a lot in a little time.
they sure do. And I try to do my notes the best I can because I was trying to include a lot without including a lot. But yeah, one of the things I noticed in this episode that I wanted to bring up was the fact that when Bruce and Dick were in the manor and Bruce was looking at his father's law books, I was like, wait a minute, his father wasn't a lawyer, he was a doctor, at least in the comics. So I found that was strange and unusual.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know the comics well enough to know when Bruce Wayne's father was first listed as a doctor. I don't know how far back that goes. I mean, I've read a lot of Batman, including the Golden Age stuff. But to be honest with you, I don't remember them mentioning whether or not he was a doctor or not. Now I just sort of take it for granted, but I'm not sure if this early on, if they had established that already. But yeah, it's something that I noticed as well, which is so funny because it's just a pat like normal people wouldn't notice this at all when you're watching this. There's so much other stuff going on, and yet is one of the things that I picked up on as well. Just from being a Batman guy, I guess. But yeah, so that would be I would like to research that because I'm not really sure when it was established in the comics what his father did. I mean, it was established pretty early on how they died and that they were murdered. And we get two mentions in this episode, Drew, of his parents being killed, murdered, actually, which I don't know if we ever get that again in the series. Because the series pretty much is a positive for kids kind of thing, very campy, very light. They don't get into dark material very often.
One of the other things I noticed in this episode was the fact that there was no fight scene. Almost
Yes.
every episode I remember had a fight scene, and this one didn't, which
Nope.
was unusual.
Yeah, you think there's going to be a fight, and then the Riddler just serves up the dynamic duo with papers, which was very unusual. I mean, this is the first episode, so we don't know what to, people didn't know what to expect. But yeah, watching this one, it is one of the few episodes that doesn't have a fight scene, although all of the key villains are there. So I expect we'll get that in the next one.
One of the one of the other things I thought was funny was, the room with the red phone in it. Oh man, that wallpaper is looks awful.
There are a lot of touches now that we see this in high def on Blu-ray and whatnot. I'm not sure exactly how you were watching it, but um, uh, that things that they didn't expect people to notice in the 60s, when this originally aired. In fact, the resolution on my Blu-ray is so good when Bruce picks up the book from the shelf, the law book, he like blows dust off it, and it's real. Like you can see the dust, and I was like, oh my, that's great. Oh man, the set designs of this series. I mean, the wallpaper is one thing, but I mean, the Batcave in itself just looks gorgeous. They spent a lot of money on this. You could tell the design work on the Batcave, on the costumes, and the Batmobile almost in its of itself is a character that steals the show in the first episode.
Yeah, it sure does. That the sets look great.
Yes. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, as a kid watching this, who doesn't want to be on that set? I mean, it looks so beautiful. It's got the Batmobile in it and everything. It's got these huge computers. It just is all colorful. It looks really, really great.
If I remember it at the beginning, I don't know if it was at the beginning of this episode, but I remember beginning of other episodes I've seen where it says in color during the
Yes.
intro.
Yeah. I mean, back then, a lot of people didn't have color TV, and this was a reason to get color TV because they certainly use, I think, the colors, both Batman and Robin's outfits, as well as the Riddler's outfits and Jill St. John as Molly, her outfits and everything like that. The whole scene in the disco. I mean, everything is very colorful.
The other thing I noticed was Batman's costume looked kind of purplish. At least his
Hmm.
cowl did. So,
And his gloves, I think a bit, yeah.
yeah. So the colors it was kind of a blue into a purple, and I thought that looked kind of weird, but I didn't remember that from before, but I noticed it when I watched it this time.
I've noticed that, especially when Scott Snyder was doing his run on Batman with the year zero or year zero stuff, right? The year zero. His early Batman had purple gloves. And I'd always wondered where that came from. And I guess that does come from the golden age a little bit. And also I do wonder if it comes from this show a little bit too. The fact that his gloves are a little purple.
That could very well be.
I find it
So,
interesting too that year zero arc two with Snyder's run starts with the Riddler being, I think, one of the main villains. And here he is right here. This doesn't start. This is before Batman. This is, I mean, other than the movie serial that aired in the 40s or whatnot, this is the first time Batman's really out there. Um, Batman wasn't as huge as a hero as we think he was. Like he is now. He's probably the most popular superhero maybe ever. I mean, Superman, maybe Spider-Man, sure. But I mean, Batman has always been, or we think he's always been huge. Um, but not so in the 60s. He was not, I mean, the comic itself wasn't doing very well. It was on the verge of being canceled. And this show saved it. This show brought new life to the character as well as the comic, and was a huge impact on how Batman was seen ever since then. whether it be the Batcave or Batman and Robin or the Batmobile or some of the villains. I think that this show made a huge impact on everything that followed from Batman going forward. And you can see
It's
it right here in this first episode.
yeah, and then it by the end of the '60s, in the comics anyways, Batman started going darker, so more serious stories and stuff.
Yeah, once the show ended, it remained silly for a little while, but then you're right, and then it sort of brought back the edge to it. But and that and one thing I love about Batman is that, you're able to do that with this character. I have seen so many different versions and iterations and interpretations of Batman, and I think that it's a character that you can have a lot of fun with, and you can do a lot of things with. You can have the darkest of darkest stories. You can have the world's greatest detective stories with him. You can have fun with him. I just watched not too long ago. I just watched the Christmas special, Merry Little Batman, and it was a lot of fun. And it was a very campy Batman comedic for kids kind of tale about Batman and Damian. And you know what? I think Batman is one of those characters you can do that with. I know some people are very much like in fans of the Dark Knight. They want the darkness, they want the shadows, they want, this, that, and that's the only way they'll see the character. But I think good characters like Batman, and other characters like that too, they kind of supersede that. They are adaptable to sort of a lot of different telling a lot of different kinds of stories. Look at, for example, I know this is odd, but look at the new Godzilla movie, right? The new Godzilla movie that is in it's one of my favorite movies of the year. One of my favorite Godzilla movies ever, Godzilla -1 that Toho just did. It's a very serious reinterpretation of Godzilla, and yet I still enjoy the 60s 70s Godzilla movies where he's like, the hero of Japan kicking aliens and setting fire to three-headed alien monsters and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and he had a cartoon, and he had, there's different interpretations of that character that I think they all work on some sort of level, and I think with Batman you can do the same thing.
Sorry, you just reminded me of that. If it's the cartoon I'm thinking of from the '80s where they used to push a button on some device and he'd shoot up out of the water or
Yep.
something, I think
Yep.
I remember watching that.
And he had his own theme song, just like Batman, uh, and I didn't come, yeah. So if you had us comparing Batman to Godzilla in your bingo card while you were listening to our podcast, then good for you, because that just check that off. But I do think that, you know, I I have grown up with a lot of different iterations of Batman, and I can enjoy so many of them. And I don't, I think I take them all for what they are. And I think this series is so well done, as far as the writing by Lorenzo Semple Jr., who sets the tone for being campy, but also, not winking at the camera, not overplaying the hand. That the beauty of it is that all the characters in here, from Commissioner Gordon to the Riddler to Bruce Wayne and Alfred, everybody is taking this very seriously. All the actors are taking it seriously, and that's why it works to me.
You just reminded me of something towards the beginning of the episode when Commissioner Gordon gets that first riddle and they're all in the commissioner's office. You got all these detectives and stuff in there. Uh, what did they decide? It's the Riddler. It's too big for us to handle. We have to call Batman.
He's like, yeah, he's like,
It
so
is
anybody want to tackle this? And they're all just looking at each other like, if they could step back, they everybody's like, yeah, no, we're not. And that's a running joke that'll happen, I think, throughout the run of the series, is that unfortunately it's not a great depiction of police departments.
No, but we got to have a reason for Batman and Robin to be in the show. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. But even then, and but I think also to their credit too, the Riddler's no again, I'm intending to use the pun here. The Riddler's no joke. The way Frank Gorshin plays this, he's manic and he's dangerous. And he's probably out of almost all the Batman 60s villains, he's probably the one that is the darkest because it just seems like he could murder you at any moment because Frank Gorshin just brings that sort of seriousness to it, even though he doesn't murder anybody in this, but he just kind of has that look in his eye like, oh, I don't want to mess with this guy.
one of the things I loved about him playing the character was his laugh he had.
Yes.
It kind of it kind of reminds me of the Joker a little bit, but a little more edgy and a little more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, it's dark. It's sort of like the night. It's the sort of the laugh you hear in nightmares.
So yeah, I've always loved the Riddler in this series.
And I mean, we can't review this first episode, this first outing, without remarking about what an amazing job right from the beginning that Adam West and Burt Ward do. As it's well known, um, Adam West was not the only person that was approached to do this role, and I believe it came down to him and Lyle Wagner to be the lead in this, and ultimately it went to Adam West, which the screen tests for Lyle Wagner and the other young man who is going to play Robin, I can't remember, Dick Grayson, I can't remember who the name of that gentleman, but
It was
um
Peter Dale or something like that.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Um when you watch those screen tests, they're very interesting, but I mean, it's obvious that the right people got the role. Like, no offense to Lyle Wagner and Peter, but um, Adam West and Burt Ward just bring this sort of energy to it that I don't. It's difficult to do. What they do in this, the way they treat it seriously without making it too absurd, I think is a credit to both of them. And I don't think Adam West gets enough credit for his acting and ability to take this character and make it his own.
Yeah, I saw some of those screen tests, and it was very interesting the comparison between the two.
Hmm.
So yeah, I could definitely tell why they chose who they chose. It was very apparent.
It's interesting in the screen tests, the costume for Batman had just a black bat without the yellow circle, the yellow oval around it. And it seemed odd, although for those of us who know or are familiar with the character in the Golden Age, that's how Batman started with just a black bat. And I think that's the way he was depicted as well in the movie serials in the 40s. But I think it was a wise move putting the orange oval around the symbol on the outfit for Adam West when they did the series because it just stands out a lot more. This is not a dark version of Batman.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say about the episode before we wrap this up, Mike?
Um, Again, the Batmobile, which is my favorite vehicle, I think of all time, really shines here. And I mean, it defends itself. Like I said, it's a character in and of itself. I mean, we get to see it in the beginning, and we're like, that looks cool. But then we get to see it do cool, like James Bondy type stuff, which I thought was really neat. And the theme song is right away. I mean, it's the theme song that everybody knows. There's so much of this that's right from the beginning. This is not like, oh, well, you have to watch it in a few episodes, then it really gets to be like Batman the way you think of it. No, right from the beginning, it's all the elements are right there. I'm kind of surprised sometimes when you go back and watch a show and how rough it can be. Even Star Trek, when you watch like the 60s Star Trek episodes, it takes a few episodes because before it really gets kind of in a groove. But it feels like with Batman, it's just right away, boom, that almost all the elements are right there. And there's a little tweaking that they do to things as they go on, but pretty much all the elements that take it through the entire 3 seasons are right here.
That reminds me, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up that I forgot about. And that was the fact that we had Robin driving the Batmobile. Because I
Hmm.
specifically remember an episode where he gets his license. And he wasn't able to drive. He gets his license and he's able to drive the Batmobile like he hadn't driven it before.
Well,
So
to be fair, he just parks it. So
that is
he's
true.
not taking it on the open road.
So that is true.
So and all the little things about how Robin can't get in because he's underage, and Batman can't drive to save him because he's under the influence, and all of these little things. The hook that you mentioned in the summary, uh, the bat belt, the utility belt, just even like I said right from the beginning, that looks awesome. We get the Batarang, the first appearance of the Batarang, I think, and some really like amazing stuff right off the bat here.
That belt, the belt they use in the show, it reminds me a lot of the belt we've seen in the comics. Some of the other iterations of Batman in movies and stuff just haven't had a a belt that looks like it's a utility belt, especially
Right.
Batman '89 movie.
Sure, sure. Yeah. This actually looked like, I mean, it has little pouches, and everything has something that he absolutely needs at the right time.
Sure does. All right, that wraps up our show for this week. Do you have a shout out, Mike?
Well, in addition to this, I am still recording on a semi-weekly basis, bi-weekly actually. We're recording episodes of Earth Station Who, in which I, along with co-host Mike Faber and Mary Ogle, review past episodes and present when they're airing of Doctor Who. So it's another show that we are reviewing, and I'm been doing that for a while. And there's a lot of episodes of that as well, over 50 years worth. So it's taken us some time and we're not doing that in order. So we're having a lot of fun jumping around different time periods of Doctor Who. So if you're a big fan of classic TV, of classic Doctor Who, then check out Earth Station Who, which we are still recording every other week.
All right, and I'm going to shout out about my show, the Earth Station DCU. We review comics and television, DC television shows every week. Batman wise, right now, we've been reviewing Batman and Robin by Joshua Williamson. We've been reviewing the regular Batman series by Chip Zdarsky is writing it right now. Detective Comics is being written by Rom V. What else? Oh, there's a mini series out called Batman Off World, where Batman goes into space. That's by Jason Aaron, and that's been pretty good. So quite a few Batman. There's usually a lot of Batman stuff we review on the show. So
No end to the Batman material that comes out.
nope. All right. If you'd like to comment on anything we've talked about, all right, I'm having technical difficulties here. I can't even read my number. Well, at least I said it earlier in the show. So
Hey, it's our first episode, so
yes, it is. And my computer right now is flashing. I can't even read anything.
yeah,
It's going.
I've noticed that
It's on the
there's some
fritz.
like bat alarms or something going off. Yeah, so
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
peace.